Good morning and welcome to our first Zooming in on Strengths conversation. To begin, I wanted to remind everyone that strengths is not about what you are, but why and how you do what you do best. So today I am pleased to have some of our EOL staff members with us today to talk about strategic. We have Justin Morrison, who is in the IT department. Justin, will you hold up your top 5 list for us and just go through those?
So strategic, relator, responsibility, includer, and analytical.
All right, so strategic number 1. Right. All right, also from the IT department, we have Mary Lynn. Mary Lynn, will you tell us your top 5?
Sure. So I have strategic, learner, analytical, relator, and maximizer. So wow. Justin and I actually have 3 in our top 5 that overlap.
That's great. Okay. All right, Matt from the young adult department. Matt, what are your top 5?
All right. So we can get this. I've got positivity, strategic, ideation, woo, and communication.
All right, great combination there. Dale, children's department, what have you got?
Okay, responsibility, input, connectedness, learner, and strategic.
Great, great. Angela, tech services, what have you got?
All right, I've got adaptability, strategic, relator, developer, and empathy.
All right, great. And James is the only person in the circulation department that had strategic in the top 10. And so, James, tell us what your top 5 are.
That's right. I have empathy, strategic, intellection, relator, and connectedness.
Great, great. Okay, so let's get started.
I think for me, it means being able to kind of sort through the clutter, being able to kind of recognize things that are not important so that I can focus on things that are important. I think it helps also to try to be observant, try to pay attention to things that people usually might overlook.
Yes, that's mentioned often in the podcast that strategic also notices the breadcrumbs and can sort of string those along to get to the best path.
If I walk into a situation and it's pure chaos, that drives me crazy because I can see where the log jams are, where things are stopped and how it can be done better. It doesn't mean people always listen to me or that I'll really explain why I think something should be done a certain way, but it's just observing all of the chaos and seeing where the patterns and repeating trends are and then trying to focus things down to get rid of that chaos and just recognizing similar themes in all kinds of things like pieces of music, like, oh, that sounds like something else. It's just recognizing repeating patterns no matter how they pop up.
Yeah, to me, I'll echo that. I think of it as separating the signal from the noise when there's a whole lot of information. And when you do start to see those things repeating or coming from different sources and different angles, that's where you start to be able to separate the signal from the noise and figure out what the meaningful information is.
I think some of you know that I'm a social work student, and basically as a social worker, you're a problem solver. People come to you at their worst day, in a chaotic situation. So it's definitely a skill I'm trying to develop, and I can see how being strategic comes into play, finding solution, but helping a person come up with a solution on their own, empowering them in that way,
As a teacher who works with those children who are struggling with reading, I'm also on the committee that a lot of the decisions based on what's working, what doesn't, and kind of pulling off of what Angela said, in the past at our school, people were assessing children differently. You know, we always say, let's use data, let's use our data. But then when you have people using different instruments to measure, there's not a lot of consistency. So I've been involved lately in trying to have that process be more focused so that all of our decisions can be based off of the same data and not one teacher using this and one teacher using that. So
I should say at this point, I forgot to say at the beginning, my top 5 are relator, harmony, connectedness, arranger, and futuristic. Strategic is my dead last at 34. So I rely heavily on those of you who have strategic.
I think my strategic strength helped me out when I was testing out different chat platforms for the website. I spent a few weeks looking at all the options and all the details of several different platforms, and I recruited people from other departments to help me out with the testing. Especially when I was setting everything up, I really had to think ahead and try to predict how the system would work when I had multiple people chatting all. So it was really important to pay attention to the setup beforehand. I was kind of ready for it.
I got really excited about live chat because of my futuristic. I saw what it could do. I saw how it could help us. Like, I saw months ahead. And then we had the call with the sales rep, and I got a big fat headache and was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And Mary Lynn with her strategic said, oh, now I'm really excited about it. Like, I can see all the steps that we have to do. And so it was a great complementary partnership.
Like, if I had to do the research like Justin did for the live chat, I'd be like, well, I can't do this. But if we're already using something and it's just terrible, then I would be motivated to be able to fix it, because I like to fix things on the fly and make them better.
Well, in the insight, something that I related to was that language is so important. You know, it said that people that have this strategic in their top 5 tend to really be fascinated by language and really dwell on it. And I think that's come in handy because some people just don't have that strength. They struggle to find the right word for what they're looking for.
You know, your theme insight report is totally tailored to you. So some piece of it may show up in someone else who has high strategic, but the bit about the language definitely doesn't show up in every single person that has strategic in their top 5. So that's based on your other strengths around it. And so, yeah, that's definitely something that kind of a superpower that you have to use language to help communicate the best path.
I guess one thing would be when we were still working at home and talking about socially distancing, when we came back in, and you know, several of the window areas here were going to be used as workstations. And we've always put the summer reading books by grade level on the shelves in each of these windows. So to keep social distancing going on, I asked Gloria if we could just move all the summer reading books over to where the new books are. So many of the books are on the summer reading list, and we would have all of those in just one central area.
Like, I like ideas a lot. Ideation for me follows right after strategic, and positivity is right in front of it. So I think kind of joined in with that. Like I really am interested in what other people are thinking. And I'm not necessarily going to be, especially at the start of a project, married to my way or the highway. Like I don't think I've got the end all be all idea.
Interesting. Anybody agree or disagree?
I feel like I'm different in that respect. I would rather come in after some of the legwork has been done. Well, part of what I think I do well with my strategic strength is look at a lot of information and streamline it. And I get impatient with a lot of ideation, a lot of brainstorming, and I don't take any joy in that brainstorming and all of that. Whereas Matt, I feel like you do. I feel like that's something you really love. And
Yeah, I mean, I really love that about our teen advisory board, like that we have all these different kind of ideas of how to do things and figure. I mean, of course, then it falls to Michelle and myself to decide how we're really going to go forward. But it's so great to get those ideas and that input.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can definitely see where my strategic strengths might have a negative impact at the beginning of a project, because a lot of times I'll latch on to what I think is the simplest solution, and I can be kind of dismissive to anything else that comes up, especially if it's something I think has any kind of redundancy in it. So in that way, I think I can be kind of critical at the beginning of a project.
I completely agree with Justin. I'm the same way. I don't like to brainstorm so much, but I will just dismiss anything I think is a bad idea, or I just won't even consider things because I've already gone to the conclusion that it's a bad idea and I should be a little more open.
Days when I go to meetings with the principal, you know, a lot of times I'm the devil's advocate. I may really agree with what they're going to do, but I try to throw the flip side there. Well, if we do this, you know, we're going to have some people who are saying this or whatever. So, but I, you know, have found that I need to try to be as I don't like to come across as bossy either, you know, part of like a team players.
I think that's a great point, that your strategic may help you be a devil's advocate, may help you say, all right, you know, I agree with you, but I also see this path and other people may see this path. So, you know, what do you think might the reactions be? That's a really, really good point, Dale. Thank you for adding that.
I have Relator in my top 5, and one of the things that I picked up on my insight report, and I think it's not always true, but when I'm really leveraging the best of both of those strengths, I can be diplomatic in showing what I think is the best strategy going forward, because that relator strength kicks in and helps me understand other people's points of view and shoot down the wrong answer in a nice way.
Yeah, I'm very similar that way. I also have Relator in my top 5, and I feel like it moderates my strategic strength a good bit. I don't want to seem too pushy with a solution, even if I'm, you know, super confident in it. I just don't want to upset people or put people off. And a lot of times I'll accept a solution that I don't think is the best solution, but it makes other people happy.
Relator is also in my top 5, but empathy is my number 1. And at first glance, I think strategic and empathy, relator, they might seem unrelated, but I thought about it and I think it really is all connected to being emotionally intelligent. You know, and I think empathy comes into play in that I'm good at de-escalating and calming people down, people who are distressed and upset. And you do have to be strategic with that.
Absolutely. Empathy, you can feel the way other people are feeling without them actually having to say it out loud. And definitely pair that with strategic, and it can certainly lead to a deeper conversation, I think.
I wanted to jump onto what James said about the empathy and the relator and everything. And part of what we really have to do is consider what are the constraints that we have and what's our knowledge base and what's the best solution for who we are and where we are, not necessarily just the fastest or easiest, or we just have to consider all of that context, I guess.
I do think it's good to have the touchy-feely strategics like me and James, because I have empathy as my number 5, and then to have the more analytical, process focused strategic people like Mary Lynn and Justin. I think that we work together as a team well because we can fill each other in on the different aspects. So I think if you have a project, you should have a touchy-feely strategic and a, focused strategic.
Well, definitely leveraging complementary partnerships. I harp on that all the time, but I think it really is important. And part of that is learning more about your teammates. So who to turn to for specific tasks or viewpoints. And that's part of why we're here today, is so that you can learn more about your strengths, and the rest of the library can learn more about you and their own strengths. And so I appreciate your willingness to have this conversation, and I hope that we can have more conversations like this in the future.